Welcome to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast to the Sydney Swans Football Club. My name's Noddy, joined as always by Stevo, and in this episode number 19, we're going to talk about the game just played against the Bulldogs, a quick VFL update, a few general topics in the AFL, the game ahead against the Giants, and finish off with all of our tips for the rest of the round. So to all you Cygnets and Swanlings out there, fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. Last Sunday afternoon on the 11th of July, in front of almost 25,000 people at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, the sixth place Sydney Swans defeated the first place Western Bulldogs by 19 points, with a final score of 8-12-60 to 11-13-79. Okay, Stevo, first impressions. What did you think of that?
Oh, mate, what a win. I was buzzing. That's certainly the best I felt this year after a win. And it was a really impressive and mature win is what I liked about it in particular. I mean, if last week was all about this sort of excitement, dominating a team that was having an off day and playing well, then this week was really about going to work and showing that exact same application against a premiership favourite on their home ground and, dictating the game to them from the beginning. I mean, Luke Beveridge, the Bulldogs coach, said in his press conference afterwards, the Swans played the way that they wanted to play, only the Swans did it better when we were very, very good. It was great to watch.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I thought it had the vibes and the makings of like a grand final. It just kind of had that feel. And look, while I'm here, I'm going to say it also felt like the umpires were against us, just like they were in 2016. I will never let that go. It was extremely tight. It was extremely tense. It was a game where like every single move you think mattered, So naturally, I was really, really nervous throughout. And those kind of nerves are normally reserved for a real grand final, which we're lucky enough to have experienced in our lifetime. The heart, it's racing. You can't sit down. You're pacing around the lounge room. You're taking quick sips of beers, fist pumps with every goal. You're just screaming at the TV with the umpires, every terrible call. McInerney for front on contact. What? Come on. Anyway, so the sense of relief I felt when that siren went, that final sound was just so incredible. We applied pressure, strangled their natural game, played a solid 4 quarters. It was such an awesome win. Man, we earned that. We deserved it. I have cautiously yet optimistically started to dream big, but we'll get into that as we progress in this podcast. All right, Stevo, what were your key takeaways, mate?
I think first thing from that was, when we're on, we're as good as anyone. And our best footy is really, really good footy to watch and might even be the best that there is in the comp at the moment. Robbo was saying the other day on one of the panel shows that, when you watch the Swans, their best footy is amazing and it's what you want to watch and they can cut teams apart. And then importantly from that, like in terms of our best being as good as any other best, is that our record against the top teams is very good. Against the teams that I think we can make the finals, we've beaten Melbourne. We lost to Melbourne by 9, narrow game. We beat the Dogs. We've beaten Brisbane. We've beaten Geelong. We lost narrowly to Port. We lost narrowly to Fremantle. We smashed West Coast. We beat St Kilda. We lost very narrowly to the Giants. We beat Essendon and we've beaten Richmond. So we don't really have anything to fear from that group of about 12 or 13 teams that can potentially be in the finals. So if we get into the finals, we should have confidence that we can take on anyone. We've beaten 3 of the top 4, and our biggest loss to any team in that group of about a dozen teams that is listed is 10 points. That's a really, really good position to be going into some big games from.
Definitely, mate. I'm going to reiterate and paraphrase Horse's post-game comments and say, even though we didn't get the clearance battle right, we defended well and played to our strengths. We played smart and hard, gave an even contribution from senior and younger guys, and we got a fantastic win. Now, he's very well spoken. He's usually very reserved and measured, but that was about as emotional as I'd seen him in recent times. So I took from that and the game, once I'd calmed down and I'd picked up the remote control and all that sort of stuff. But if we can stick to our game plan and bring a sustained 4-quarter effort, even when challenged in key areas like clearances, etc., I truly, truly believe we have the right balance of youth and experience to match it. Like, I think we're smart and skilled enough to beat anyone. So that's where this, starting to dream big comes from. We'll talk about our road home in segment 2 a little bit more. As long as we don't drop our standards against teams that are lower than us, like we have this year against the Suns and the Hawks, then I don't know. I think we should come pretty close to cracking the top four, at least definitely hold our spot in the top eight and get to finals. But obviously we don't want to, put the moz on us too soon because there's still a bit of footy left. But anyway, we'll go through the quarter by quarter breakdown very quickly here, Stevo. So in the first quarter, the Swans scored 4 goals, 2 to the Dogs, 3 goals, 2. So we won that one by 6. In the second quarter, we scored 3 goals, 2 to the Dogs, 2 goals, 3. So we won that one by 5. So we took an 11-point lead going into halftime. In the third quarter, the Swans scored 2 goals, 4 to the Doggies, 1 goal, 1. So we won by 9 and then took a 20-point lead going into the final quarter. In the fourth quarter, the Doggies scored 2 goals, 6 behinds to our 2 goals, 5 behind. So they won that quarter by 1 point. Nevertheless, they lost by 19. We were victorious. It was amazing. Oh, yes. How good was that? All right, Stevo, throw me some numbers, stats. Let's get into them.
Okay, today I'm actually going to talk about 3 of their key players and the way that the Swans targeted them and restricted their influence on the game. I noticed something really interesting on the broadcast, watching on the telly. At quarter time in the Swans huddle, on their whiteboard, they hold up with the various, instructions and positions and whatever. In the bottom right of one of the whiteboards, you could just see on the camera there was a little list that was entitled targets, and so under targets there were 3 names: Bontempelli, Liberatore, and Daniel. And then after each one of those 3 names was the number of disposals they'd had in that first quarter. So these were the 3, clearly based on that the Swans were really going after, that they think drive a lot of their play and were very important to shut down and restrict the influence. So let's look at what each one of those guys did. Bontempelli, 27 touches, 70% efficiency, which is good. And he's a very good player, but significantly his score involvements were down. He averages elite level in the AFL. He's listed as elite for score involvements in the AFL, 8.1 per week. He got just 3, so that's a massive drop. If you look at Daniel had 30 touches. He got a lot of the ball, but he got it at 53%. So that means that every second possession that he's getting is not an effective possession. So again, very good work on restricting his output. And Liberatore, 18 possessions only, and of those 18 possessions, just 5 of them in the second half at 56%. He's normally elite at contested possessions and clearances, but was down from his averages on both of those. Normally he averages 13.8 on contested possessions. He got just 8.4, and on clearances, he was down from 8.4. Sorry, 13.8 contested possessions down to 7, and 8.4 clearances down to 6. So big drop-offs in both of those key areas where he's normally an elite footballer. And yeah, they really went to work on these guys, and some of their prime movers didn't have the impact on the game that they would otherwise have.
There were moments there when I thought Bont was going to just do his thing and steal it back from us. But yeah, we did very well there, didn't we? I'm going to look at some of the overall game stats. Obviously, a bit has been made by the coaches regarding clearances and how we got thoroughly done in that area. So we lost clearances 26-46, and the Doggies scored 37 points to our 17 from stoppages. So they were very much winning those areas. Other than that, we basically smashed them in general play. So we're talking about one-on-one contests. We won 17-7. Marks, we were plus 56. So we had 123 marks to their 67. We had kicking efficiency at 74%. They had 60%. We also scored 62 points to their 23 from intercepts. So the other very interesting thing was that going into that game, the Western Bulldogs were ranked number 1, scoring on average 33 points a game from forward half intercepts. But in the game that we played against them, we kept them to only 1 point. I think that is a remarkable feat. So they're 32 points better on average per game from forward half intercepts. So we just applied pressure and we were just more efficient with it. We didn't turn it over as much. They certainly weren't able to capitalize on that. Man, it was just such an overall, just a tight and tidy performance. It was so impressive. It was fantastic. All these games of late, I'm going to have to be watching replays of the replays of the replays. It's going to chew up some time, but I love it. All right. So, Stevo, what were your favourite moments of the game, mate?
Yeah, I got a couple. And they build actually on what you've been talking about, like how we played and the way we moved the ball. The first one was the build up to Hayward's first goal, which was 14 minutes left in the second quarter. And we bring the ball from the back line up to the wing. Wicks gets a good crumb, and then you see Blakey streaking through for the handball receive, kicks long to a very dangerous spot. And the thing you can see this, because we get the behind the goals footage on the replay of this one, was really good. Blakey starts his run from inside defensive 50, gets a handball on the wing, and then cuts through, changes the angle up through half forward to deliver to the hot spot and set up a goal. And that was fantastic. That was really how we want to move the ball up, and showing why I'm so excited, I think, about Blakey off halfback, because he really is one of those line breaking players that can cut through the middle of the ground. And, you know, he started in the back 50 and then he's putting the ball down the throat of a forward 25 metres out from goal in a single play. That's the sort of player that he is. And if we can get more of that out of him, then I'll be very happy. And then the second one was also a really good example of transition. It was in the third quarter, about 16-ish minutes to go, 6.5 minutes to go. And we had a good transition, really brave by McInerney, did some good play on, smart work by Parker. Then Heaney gets that really nice kick off his left foot goal. So it's that really nice balanced goal that Heaney kicked on his non-preferred foot. But what I want to focus more on this one is how we move the ball. And this is what they talk about. When the commentators were talking about going around the Dogs, this is a perfect example. So if you rewind a bit further back, you'll see how this all started. We turned the ball over on our half forward line on the broadcast side of the ground. We worked it all the way back around through our defensive 50, back out the other side, all the way up, opening space, because all of their players were on the contest on the broadcast side. We stretched them all the way out when we turn it over, made them go out there, and then we take them very, very wide. There's a really good bit of footage. You can see Hayward on the far left from the behind the goal shot, working out wide. So by Hayward working out wide and stretching them up, that gives the space for that really aggressive inside kick where McInerney takes it. We change the angle again, and Heaney ends up goaling from, you know, less than 50 metres from where the play began in the first place, having done an almost full circle around the entire field. And you can kick faster, you can run. So if you can stretch them like that and you're brave enough to do it, then you can really make them work and open up opportunities through the middle. And that's what we did. We pulled them out, we sliced back through the gap and then hit the fat side again. And that was a beautiful goal. Like, I really like that goal.
Oh, the heat. How good was it? He just looks so good, doesn't he? Oh, look, funnily enough, Stevo, I had the exact same two moments. I don't think we've ever done that before.
No,
it's our 19th episode. We've always picked out a few little differences. You know, we've had a few overlaps, but never two exactly the same. So I can say hand on heart that I definitely would not have done as good a job at summarizing those as you did just then. So thanks for that. But what I will do is I'll just add a few little moments that I remembered from the game throughout that I just thought were very cool. And I think most Swans fans would have enjoyed in the moment. So Hickey's round the back basketball type move was just bloody cool. I mean, the hick, come on. Well, you may as well be a Harlem Globetrotter, I think they referenced at that point, but that was just awesome. He also put just enough pressure on Jamara Ugle-Hagan that they couldn't stop talking about to deny him his first goal on debut. So I thought that was just good pressure. Hickey was also good around the ground, I thought, during the game. The other thing was Goulden's perfect lace-out kick, and I think there were a couple of them, but at least one. I'm going to say at least one. Perfect lace-out kick to Buddy on the lead. Now, it feels like this 18-year-old, Errol, understands Buddy's leading patterns better than any other Swan right now. I'm going to, dare I say it, any other Hawk. I don't know. It's just sublime to watch. His kicking action to the great man is just a work of art. I loved it. Okay, the last thing that I loved and enjoyed was Buddy's palpable joy in kicking his one and only goal. And obviously his radar was off, but we don't care because he's Bud. And that massive pump up he gave to the Bloods fans sitting behind the goals. I don't know about you, Stevo, but when I see this, I actually just can't stop myself from smiling. And when I see Buddy pumped up and he's just means so much to him, he's high-fiving everyone. I sit there and I smile. I feel warm. It's I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. I'm going to say it's an amazing thing, but I love it. I bloody love it. And I love Bud. All hail King Bud. Okay. I know he kicked, what did he kick? 1-3 or something? I don't care.
Yeah, he sprayed a few, but he is
Sprayed a
great. Like
few.
I totally agree because this is a bloke who's achieved everything you can achieve in football. You know, there's nothing left for him to check off his list, but he's still really really excited about playing and playing well with this team. So it's fantastic to see him get such a buzz out of it.
It was unreal. Unreal. All right, let's move on to the ABOB medal, the A Bevy of Bloods medal, where Stevo and I choose our 5 best Swans from the ground using the 5-4-3-2-1 scoring system with 5 points being the best. Stevo, kick us off.
I gave 5 to Dawson, 4 to McCartan, 3 to Parker, 2 to Mills, 1 to Papley.
Well, here we go. Okay, funnily enough, I gave 5 to Dawson, 4 to McCartan, 3 to Mills, 2 to Parker, and 1 to Juzzy McInerney. So I think we've just got Papley and McInerney as the differences there. And we've got Dawson, McCartan, Parker, and Mills the same. So do you want to just lead off with a few comments of why you chose these guys?
Sure. It's almost like we watched the same game this week for a change.
I'll tell you what. Oh, come on. I didn't whinge that much about the umpires. Well, it's not true. I whinged to you. I whinged to the other group. The boys were like, settle down, Noddy. I was like, nah, this is 2016 all over again.
You anyway. Sent me some tables and all sorts of stuff. It was great.
I was going deep down the rabbit hole, mate.
Yes, you were.
It wasn't pretty. But, anyway, go for it.
Dawson was fantastic. I really like how he's gone on the wing, sort of running hard forward. His marking is really important. He looks dangerous every time he gets it. His marking ability means he's a very good transition player out of the back. So he's been great on that wing the last couple of weeks, and then his impact forward. McCartan was dominant. I think probably his best game for the Swans. He marked everything. He stopped everything. He was great. Parker, look, I think I felt bad for not giving Parker votes last week, and this week I couldn't leave him out because he got 30 touches last week, but this week he got 27 touches, 30 touches, something like that, a lot. Plus he kicked a goal, plus he got a game high 27 pressure acts, so he certainly got his spot in the votes this week. And Mills, I mean, he's just having a great year. We keep talking about him, and I'll continue to pump him up for a very deserved All-Australian jacket. Let's see if he gets it. But if he, even if he doesn't, we know that he's had a fantastic year, and I think he should be a shoo-in for our best and fairest.
Absolutely. Okay, mate. I'm going to add a couple of things to those 4 players. So stats-wise, hard numbers, okay. Dawson, 26 disposals, 20 effective disposals, 6 marks, 3 of them contested, 3 goals. So an equal career high for him. The last time he scored 3 goals was against the Cats at the SCG in 2019, round 19. We lost that one, but this is the game. I don't know if you remember a couple of episodes back, I was talking about when Dawson got an amazing goal. It was in that game. He like basically sold like 3 sets of candy, came in and then kicked a goal. It was from that game I was remembering. Anyway, it was unreal. So he had 11 contested possessions, 16 uncontested possessions, 6 1%ers, so pressure acts, 7 intercepts himself for 85% time on ground. What a game. Awesome Dawson. So good. Okay, I'm going to add for just a couple of comments on each of these guys. Okay, so Tommy McCartan, right? I found an interesting stat. I think it was on the AFL app. McCartan is the first Swan ever to record 10 spoils, 10 intercept possessions, and 10 marks. So that's since these categories have started to be measured from 2002. So that's a good couple of decades of a lot of other Swans players to have a crack at making that, and they haven't done it. And he's the first one to do it. That's amazing. He ended up with 10 marks, 12 1%ers, 11 intercepts, 9 contested possessions, 8 uncontested possessions. He looked like he was just reading it so well. I know that he can still fluctuate in form up and down, but I think every Swan fan knows he's got that feeling that he's our next Heath Grundy, and he looked sublime this game. Millsy, echoing yours there, 31 disposals, 9 marks, 8 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 2 of them center clearances, 9 contested possessions, 21 uncontested. Just goes from strength to strength. Just was it Paul Kelly? Was he referred to as Captain Courageous, or am I thinking of like a cartoon character?
I think
that was Paul Kelly, right?
Yeah, probably. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
I just feel like Mills is Captain Courageous. I know that there's like 1,000 captains and co-captains, and is he in the mix? I guess we should probably check this.
I think he's got future captain written all over him, Callum Mills.
He really does. It's just a pleasure to watch. All right, Lukey Parker. Equal first high tackles, 4 tackles, 27 disposals, as you said, 23 of them were effective. 7 clearances, all of them stoppage clearances. 8 score involvements was the second highest for the Swans. Mr. Dependable. Saved our skin a few times in clutch moments with sensible and effective defensive half clearing kicks, if you recall. Plus that third quarter goal, I think, really steadied the ship and then got us on track. It wasn't the only reason we won, but it just sort of iced things, and it was just awesome to watch. Okay, so you chose Papley for one. I chose McInerney. Why Papley?
I just think he had a really strong, hard-working game, and he was involved in a lot of important play and a lot of scoring build-up. He didn't hit the scoreboard himself. He kicked a couple of behinds. He could have made those goals, but he didn't. One especially was terrible. That he should have.
You texted me during the game.
Oh, it was awful.
You weren't as polite as you are now, but
no,
it's not to. It's not to say you don't love the guy.
Yeah. But I thought his game generally, like as a small forward, I thought he played a really important transition role and also a role in our forward 50. When he had 18 touches, 7 marks, 11 score involvements, which was a match high, and also 2 goal assists, which is also a match high. The only thing was missing was a couple of goals on the scoreboard to his name, and he probably would have been higher up my vote. So I think he had a really good game.
Yeah, definitely. Elephant in the room, just while we're on Tom Papley, the 2 almost back-to-back penalties freeze against for the 666. Okay. I lost my shit. Sorry for swearing. We don't normally do that on this show, but I lost my shit. I have never, you hear the warnings all the time. Like to the extent I've never seen a penalty I've never seen a free kick being awarded for that. Okay. It happened twice, basically in a row. You think it might have been Tommy Papley. Is that correct?
I think watching the replay on the broadcast, it seemed like they were both Papley, but it was a bit hard to tell, and the commentary around it, because you don't see if they'd shown the behind the goals thing, then we would know for sure, but the second one certainly seemed to be Papley, and I think the first one was as well, based on what the commentators were saying.
Well, listen, we know that he sort of, he follows his own rules, and it's always in between the guidelines of the game. Like, there's a little bit of working for free kicks and stuff, but that's what one of the many reasons we love him, But I just think that why you see it? I mean, you don't see it, you never see it, you never hear it. You hear warnings and you think, okay, we're warned. I'm back in it. Why were they so overtly officious against us?
My guess with it is that they probably get away with a lot of them, the players. And it just happened that you had a vigilant umpire who picked a couple up and probably even gave him a few warnings, to be honest, to start with. They probably said a few times, mate, stay in. And then he still didn't. And they said, right, we're going to ping you. And they did it 2 in a row. And I'm not even annoyed with the first one, but the fact that he did it again after getting done was quite annoying, assuming it was both him.
I'm just annoyed that there's some umpire who's vigilant about this, because it must happen every single game, but you never see it. I was ropeable, mate. Oh man. I think some of the boys had to tell me to shut up. It wasn't pretty. Anyway, that's not to say that Papley didn't have a solid game for the reasons you've mentioned, but oh God. All right. I chose Juzzy in 1 point because 19 disposals, 17 effective, 11 marks. It was the most for a Swan, more than Tommy McCartan. 3 contested possessions, 17 uncontested possessions, 7 score involvements, which was equal third. He's just beginning to look very reliable kicking out of the defensive 50. But he's obviously got that great 2-way running. He's a great runner. He's very fast. So he can assist going forward. So that's why I chose Juzzy McInerney. Honourable mentions. I know for the sake of time, you've avoided this, Stevo, but I'm just going to say really quickly, Lizard the defender. I love the look of Lizard the defender. You spoke about him earlier. He looks at home there, and it just feels right. I say, bring it on. Massive challenge for the likes of Melican and Campbell to try and fit their way back in when Blakey's playing the way he did or the way he has been in the past couple of weeks. So honourable mention to the Lizard there. All right. If you've got nothing else, I'm going to move on to give a fantasy update on our AFL fantasy team entitled A Bevy of Bloods, consisting solely of current Swans plus a few ex-Swans to help out with injury cover. In round 17, ABOB scored 1,479 points and ranked 75,444th, which was about a 6,000 place drop on last week's score, which leaves us sitting at 69,505th overall, which is about a 200 place improvement on last week. 3 of the top 5 high scores of the game were Swannies, Mills in second, Lloyd in third, Dawson in fourth. The highest scoring dog was Tim English with 127, which was also the game high. The top 5 Swans were Millsy on 116, Lloyd on 116, Dawson on 108, Hickey on 101, Parker on 96. Callum Mills has pumped out top Swan score for 3 weeks in a row now. 111, 116, 116. If that doesn't say consistency, I don't know what else does. Look, only Wicks, Amati, and Bell scored under 50 points this game. The rest were 51 points or higher. So it was a good all-round effort. In terms of trades next week, depending on selections, which we'll touch on later, I've got Logan on the bench ready to come in should Wicks, Bell, Amati be rested or rotated. But I think we can probably just hold and crack on as is. And just for those who are tuning in, fantasy is a game where every act within footy is allotted a certain amount of points. So basically, the more things you do, the more points you get. And when you play, you basically just want to have as many points as you can get from the whole team, which is the full 22 players plus the bench. So that was just a very quick snapshot of the rules there. All right, Stevo, we're going to move on to the VFL update now. So I'll pass over to you for that, mate.
The VFL teams had a tough run getting players in, and this week they finally got a bunch of their players back, and then they still managed to lose by 7 points to Footscray, who were on top of the ladder. That's the Western Bulldogs affiliate team in the VFL. They lost by 7 points. They led by 36 points at quarter time, 38 at half time, 30 at three-quarter time, and then they got up. Dylan Stevens kicked a goal early in the final quarter to get up by 36 points early in the final term. Then they conceded the last 6 goals of the game to lose by 7 points. And the Dogs tied the scores with 31 minutes gone. They got ahead with a rush behind on 34 minutes and got the sealing goal about 45 seconds later. So it was a really tough game for them. They tried hard. They played well. And look, in the last quarter, they looked pretty done, to be honest. I watched the game. And, they were playing like guys who hadn't played much footy in the last month, to be honest. We did have a much bigger contingent of our AFL listed players. We had 14 AFL listed players plus Paddy McCartan, who was clearly an ex-AFL and an AFL quality player. So 15 AFL standard players at least playing, which was a good improvement. Previous weeks we had, I think, 8 and 9 was about it. Our best players, I thought Logan McDonald had a great return. It was his first game back for a while. He got 4 goals, 14 marks, was really good. And Paddy McCartan played really well as well. 27 touches from 11 marks. I think it's got to be a no-brainer to throw the guy a contract, give him a 12-month deal at the end of the year and see how he goes in the top level. I think he'd be a really handy addition.
Absolutely. Signed by Stevo and Noddy right here, right now. Get him in. Get him in. And then the other one of interest was that Sam Reid came back from injury. He didn't really do much. He was just getting through the game, I think, was just to get minutes into his legs. So it was good to see Sam Reid get through the game healthy. In terms of the ladder, not looking great. We're 19th from 22 on the ladder. We've lost 8, 1, 2 out of 10 matches. And there seems to be no game next week because the VFL is a bit all over the place. All the teams have multiple buys. And so I think the Swans have a rest week next week because they're actually a couple of games ahead of some other teams. So possibly not even the week after. We're not sure. But at least it was great to have most of the VFL group back. Yeah, and I think there were a couple of younger academy players there, which was great to see. Angus Anderson from up near Coffs Harbour, Sawtell, I think you mentioned. And he just looks like a sturdy, solid grommet, doesn't he? And there are a couple of other academy guys there I think you called out. Who are they?
Oh, there's Reid Van Hoosted from Newcastle. He's been playing Newcastle City in the Black Diamond AFL. If anyone's familiar with the Black Diamond AFL, we've got some good players from up that way. That's sort of Isaac Heaney territory. Troy Luff territory, if you want to go back far enough.
Luffy.
Yeah, and then one from Sydney as well. So a guy called Pierce Roseby was playing from Sydney, originally Mossman Swans, which I think is where Callum Mills started playing his footy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I watched this game as well to the point where I was looking after little Plugger. To the listeners, that's my newborn son who was born a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic. I turned it off. I had to turn it off around the time that they start to make their comeback. So, I mean, you're telling me all this. I read it. I'm reading it. Just, I can't believe that. But yeah, because we played quite well for most of it. I'm just going to call out Dylan Stevens laced out Logan McDonald like 3 or 4 times, and it was just poetry in motion. Those two have like a very nice little combo, and I hope that's a bit of a sign of things to come. Other than that, yeah, I think Paddy McCartan was looking pretty good down back, and Rowie played as well, didn't he? What did you think of Rowie's game, just real quickly?
Yeah, he was good. I mean, clearly, like when these guys have been playing in the seniors, playing the VFL, it's obvious that they're above that level. So it's a bit hard to really know. He was definitely one of our better players.
Yeah, and I also will just finish off and say, how beautiful was that oval, Whitten Oval? Like the grass, the size, the stand for the spectators, the view of the Melbourne CBD in the background. I was just very impressed. It just looked awesome, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a really nice field. I mean, that's where Footscray used to play back before they put all of the Melbourne teams to play in Marvel and MCG. That was one of the really great suburban grounds, Whitten Oval, and it's really nice that it's still there and being used for VFL. I think that's great. And then I guess on top of that, if you go back, Fitzroy even played some games back there at one point. I think a couple of seasons they maybe played out of Whitten Oval. So it's a ground with a lot of history behind it, and yeah, hopefully one day we can have somewhere similar for our teams to play in Sydney.
Yeah, because you look at a field like that and you think, tramway, although it's very close to the SCG and there's a tram stop right nearby, it doesn't have that same vibe. But anyway,
No.
I guess you can't get everything you want these days. But all right, there was nothing in the MRO with our game, so we're going to move on from that. We're going on to segment 2 now, Stevo, which is just the section where we have a quick chat about a few general topics going on in the footy world. So I'm going to just read a few questions, and we're going to have a quick, spitfire type answer session here. Okay, mate? So question number 1, can Richmond recover and make the finals? If they can, are they still a chance? What do you think?
Interesting. I think that it's not impossible on paper. I mean, they probably need to win 5 or maybe even 6 of their last games to do it and get to a point where they could be a threat in the finals. But for me, it's the injury list, which is the killer for them. If you look down their injury list, I've got it right here. Noah Bolter, 5 to 6 weeks. He's done for that period. Nathan Broad, 5 to 6 weeks again. Coleman Jones, test. He might come back in and help him out. Shane Edwards, again, test. Can come back in and help him out. Basher Hooley, 3 to 5 weeks. Probably not going to help him in that period of games that they need. Kane Lambert, 1 to 2 weeks. Maybe they'll get him back for half of them. At good fitness. Nankervis is a test, so he'll probably come back in. Prestia, again, 1 to 2 weeks. He'll help him out a little bit. Solden, indefinite. We don't know what's going on with him. And Vlasto and test. So a lot of the good players that still aren't going to be around to help them get those, 4, 5, even 6 wins that they need. So for me, it's a very firming no.
Okay. So this is a team that's trumpeted their brandable depth. And they have had a good run of injuries over the past few years. We know that, or lack of. Is it catching up with them? Potentially. But I don't know. They've still got like a lot of good players on the park. So maybe their dash is done. I don't know. So we've got the tips at the end of this episode, obviously. They've got the Lions at the MCG this round. This is like, for me, if they don't win this, then I'm putting a line through them. If they can win, if they can beat the Lions, who themselves have just lost Hipwood, obviously. I think Marcus Adams. Yeah, I don't know. It's not looking pretty. But all right, that's the dynasty. Okay, which of the teams above us are most likely to win the flag? So Melbourne, Western Bulldogs, Cats, Brisbane Lions, or Port Adelaide? Who do you think?
I'm going to pick one. I'll be decisive on this. I'm going to say Melbourne, just because of the way that they play and set up. I watched them quite closely last week against, was it Port they played? Yeah, Port. And just their system. I don't think that they're an amazingly talented team, despite a handful of very, very high quality players that they have. But I think that they are getting the best out of a lot of sort of like B-level players that are having career best seasons and are really buying into a full team system, which includes very, very tightly developed defensive systems, and then also they're moving the ball forward through some of their guns and finding ways to kick goals. Even though I don't think they've got the most talented forward line, they're putting the score on the board, and they just don't let you score, and they don't let you transition, and they slow you down, and they don't let you play the way you want to play. So Melbourne's my pick.
Okay. I'm going to sort of be a little bit like a politician here and give a bit of a wish-washy answer. I'm going to say Western Bulldogs asterisk with Norton and Dunkley and Treloar. But I don't know. I think Treloar is probably ruled out for the year. Norton may come back from concussion. Dunkley's not far away either. I think he might be having a crack at the VFL this week. But them, for me, I think they're huge 3 outs. Otherwise, the Cats, for similar reasons, although I'm not really convinced with them. I think I texted you this week. Jeremy Cameron is a massive out for them. And look, God knows what happened with his hemi there. But if they can get him, and is Mitch Duncan, is he injured at the moment? I feel like he's not running out there, but maybe he is. Anyway, I think he's one of their key players as well. So if he's out, then that's one of the reasons that I don't think that Port have shown enough in the way that they play and the way that their key players are playing or not playing. So I'm ruling them out. Brisbane Lions, I think they're probably just going to limp home, to be honest. I think Hipwood is a massive out for them. So, yeah, for me, it's between Melbourne, Bulldogs, or the Cats. But here's a more interesting question.
so
maybe
three of the top 4.
three of the top 5. I told you it was going to be a politician style answer. Here's a more interesting question. Can the Swans get to September and go all the way?
Can they get to September? Absolutely. Can they go all the way? I think it's going to be tough just because I don't think we're going to finish higher than maybe 5th. I think we might scrape into the 4, but it's going to be tough because it relies on good teams above us losing multiple games and us also winning everything we need to. So I think we're probably going to be coming from 5th or 6th if we get into the finals, or certainly the bottom half of the 8. And it's just very, very difficult because it means winning 4 games all against finals quality teams in 4 weeks, and that's going to be difficult. But I think we can certainly get to the finals, and once you're in there, anything can happen.
Yep. And it was the Dogs from 7th when they came and stole it from us in 2016. So anything is possible. Here I go again. All right. I think, as you said, yes to September, and we can go all the way. I'm just going to lock it in. I'm up and about. I'm feeling very buoyant from the past couple of weeks, but obviously a lot riding on us being out of New South Wales. And we're going to talk about that very quickly right now. So obviously Sydney is burning from COVID cases. And I know it's nothing on your daily numbers there in Finland, Stevo, but just let us have our little I guess it's not a whinge because it's legitimate. It's a legitimate health issue. It's all relative is what I say to you. You're always like, oh, there's like 1 case, get over yourself. But hey, will the New South Wales teams get back home before the end of the season? Or are we set to be the South Melbourne Swans for the rest of the year? What do you think?
I mean, realistically, given the way that it seems to be developing there, the best hope would be that by the Gold Coast game in round 23, maybe. But who knows, because there's a lot of time between now and then. That would be the most optimistic outlook, would be that one final round match. And why not become the South Melbourne Swans for the rest of the season? Set up in Melbourne and embrace that part of our history, because I think it's an important part of the club's history. And this is a real chance to get involved in that and for them to get behind their team in a way they haven't really had a chance to do in honestly 40 years with the Swans playing mostly away.
Straight from the horse's mouth, mate. He also said that the bonus from this COVID-enforced Vic hub, which is essentially what's happening to the 2 Sydney teams, is that the Swans get to play in Victoria in front of the Vic-based fans. So it's fantastic. So here's a question that came up in some of the social media pages. Do we keep wearing the red V for every away game this year, so long as there's no clash, or would we need like the AFL approval for that? What do you think?
I don't know why the AFL would care as long as the other clubs don't care. I mean, we don't have the same what's the ongoing
Magpies
fight. Yeah, like
Port,
the Magpies Port thing. Yeah, that's. I was trying to think of a way to bring it up without having to talk about it again, because I'm tired to death of hearing about it. I think it'd be great.
So what do you?
Yeah.
You think it'd be good?
Yeah, I think that we were chatting before. I think it'd be really great if we, for all games in Victoria in the future, not just for this year or whatever, like if every time we played away in Melbourne, we wear the South Melbourne honoured V, because like I said, it's a very important part of the club. I mean, the club has been going for well over 100 years, and only 40 of those years are Sydney, and there's a very strong connection. And I think we're really lucky. We don't have, like, the other non-Victorian teams don't have that really strong history and support. Okay, Fitzroy through Brisbane does to an extent, but it's not the same group of rusted on supporters that we see turning up all the time to watch the Swans in Melbourne. We've always been well supported in Melbourne because of the South history, and I think it's something we could continue to find ways to honour, and wearing a South type shirt or South type jumper in those games is a way to do it.
So if any Bloods, brothers or sisters are listening in and you're based in Melbourne, this is Noddy here from Sydney saying we love you, thank you, and yeah, let's wear the red V. How awesome would that be? So just go very quickly on the run home. We have got GWS at Mars in Ballarat. That's an away game. So red V, lock it in. We've got the Dockers at GMHBA in Geelong. That's a home game. So you probably wear the Opera House. Then we've got 3 games that are all away at Marvel. So the Bombers, the Saints, the Roos. The Saints game was that rescheduling switched game for round 12. So that would probably be all red Vs, which I'm happy about. And then if we're lucky enough to see Bud kick his 1,000th goal at the SCG against the Suns, then maybe we pop the Opera House back on. But I'm sure there's a healthy compromise here. We all just love the Swans. So, and look, those jerseys, they Guernseys, they look fantastic. I thought I'd buy one. I'm probably going to buy one. I'm going to get off this podcast and buy one. I've got so much merch. I think I have a problem. Anyway, all right, Stevo. That's the middle section. That's our general topic section done. If you've got no other comments, I'll move on.
Sure.
All right, mate. So segment 3 is the round ahead preview. In this last segment, we're going to preview the most important game of next round, and that is the Swans' next game. After that, we'll finish off with our tips for the rest of the round. So game 3 of round 18 is an away game for the still 6th place Bloods, taking place this Saturday, the 17th of July at Mars Stadium in Ballarat against the 10th placed Greater Western Sydney Giants in Derby XX1, and that's 21, as I'm led to believe, with first bounce at 1:45 p.m. local time. All right, Stevo, how do we pull up against the Dogs health-wise, and what changes might we be looking at?
There were no injuries reported, but there was, and you mentioned, you picked up, you're watching, I think, a news report or something that Jake Lloyd was training separate from some of the main players, and he did get looked like a bit of a knock or a jar or something it looked like his knee late in the game. So that's the only one we're not sure about. Otherwise, everyone seemed to come through fine.
Okay, so here's the question. We're winning 2 weeks in a row. We're playing really, really well. Do we tinker with anything? Or do we just lock and load, get run on the park and do the same thing, boys? What do you think?
The only ones that I think they might change, if there are some of the younger players who have been in for a couple of weeks now, like 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm thinking specifically of Bell and Joel Amadi, if they think that those 2 guys have had their planned, 3 or 4 or 5 matches or whatever, and it's time to rotate them out and bring some of the others back in, then maybe those 2 would go out and possibly McLean come in for Amadi. And then either Rowbottom or Stevens in for Bell. They'd be the only changes I could imagine, unless there was a forced change.
Would you leave Wixie there with 2 behinds just for the role he plays?
Yeah, because he's a very important pressure player, I think, for the Swans in the forward half.
So McDonald probably hasn't had enough time back, and he can't chop out in the ruck, and that's why you go McLean over him, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it was only his first game for what? I mean, he hasn't played in the VFL for about a month since the Swans have been on the road. It's 3 weeks now the Swans have been on the road, and they had some disruptions before that. So he was great in the VFL. He kicked 4 goals, three.
His
Had a really good
hands were
game.
covered in Velcro. He was clunking everything.
Mm.
And that kicking style is just, I love that little dip. I'm trying to count it. I think it's on the 7th step that he dips. I'll have to verify that if we've got any other Swans fans who watch that closely. But yeah, exciting times ahead. But yeah, understandably, you'd probably go McLean there. He also took a fantastic contested mark, if you remember. I think it was in the 3rd quarter, maybe. Anyway, okay, so I'm probably with you, mate. I think if Jake Lloyd is out, you're going to bring in one of those midfielders and then push Dawson or McInerney or Florent back to the back line.
Yeah, one of them. I mean, we've got a lot of players that can play across halfback and use the ball really well, so I don't think they would need to try and bring in a like-for-like defender. We can do a bit of reshuffling if Lloyd were to miss.
All right, tough question. Rowbottom or Stevens if they go down that path?
Right now, Stevens, just because he looked really good. I liked the way he looked in the VFL game. He was using the ball really nicely. And I think he's one that just needs a bit more of a taste of senior footy before the end of the year. And probably as things go, as we get closer to finals and stuff, Rowbottom finds his way back into the 22. But I think it'd be good to see Stevens get some reward for some quite consistent VFL form.
Definitely. I love both those guys, but I think I'm with you on that. Get Dill Stevens in there. All right. In terms of GWS, in the mix on the AFL app have said that Whitfield was subbed off with a head injury against the Suns, but not for concussion, and then later diagnosed with concussion the day following the game. So now we'll miss 12 days as per protocols. We've got Canelio, De Boer, Brune, and Shipley all pushing for inclusions with good VFL form there. I think Canelio was killing it. He was getting like 20, 30 touches and like 1,000 tackles. So he's obviously champing at the bit. So if they come in, that's certainly something to worry about. All right, in terms of our players, which Swanee do we see flying high and why?
I want to see Papley just get a couple of goals. I think he's been playing really well, especially this week. He had a great game, but just kick a couple, 2 or 3, just to really put some icing on the top of his good work.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I picked Hewitt to tag Libba, and he wasn't on him the full game, but he did well when he was on him, and you explained earlier how well we did on those 3 big targets. But for me this week, I think it's Harry Cunningham. He's been playing near career best form in the past month, and if he is given Toby Green or Brent Daniels for that matter, he'll need to be up for it. But also just quietly and selfishly, Buddy to kick 5 and win his 4th Brett Kirk medal. It's currently tied on 3 with Kieran Jack. Brett Kirk medal is obviously the best player between the Swans and the Giants in the local derby, which is Battle of the Bridge. And I think you and I talk about this every time it gets mentioned, and we think, which bridge and why?
Exactly. Who named this?
I guess the AFL team that decided it was a good idea to put another AFL team in Sydney when really they didn't need to. But anyway, I guess that's a whole different episode, isn't it? I mean, Sydney Harbour Bridge and like the Gladesville Bridge. Is that what we're talking? Anyway, this might not make too much sense to listeners outside of Sydney. So apologies. All right. The Giants. Okay. Danger players. Who do we need to be wary of from the opposition, mate?
I think Toby Green. I mean, he's a genuine match winner. And even if the Giants are down all day, he's the sort of player that with half a dozen touches in the back of a quarter, he can put you to the sword and really shift things. He kicked 3-2 last week. He was a bit wasteful sometimes, but he only needs a few good kicks to make a difference. He's that sort of player. And, we probably don't have any one player who's a really obvious matchup. So we're going to have to pull out a bit of a team effort, and whoever does get the job with him, whether it's Cunningham, like you said, or someone else, needs to support that player so that we can curtail his influence. Like he's 7th in the Coleman. He's averaging 2.5 goals a game. He's averaging 8-ish score involvements in a game, which is number 10 in the AFL. He's a very, very dangerous player.
I would have almost put money on him kicking that goal. I think did he go banana? I think he went banana. He should have just drop punted. But anyway, it doesn't. I mean, the Suns winning sort of helped us, and it's the Giants, so I don't mind them losing. But yeah, he is such a key player for them. And I'm going to go with the other tea, green tea. There's probably a joke in there about green tea, but I'm too tired, obviously. Sorry. All right. Tom Green. He doesn't have an E on the end of his name, and that's how we separate the two tea greens. But he's earned his second Rising Star nomination this year. He's in his second year. He already looks like a future legend. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I think we should try and poach him if we can. His composure and his decision-making under pressure are years ahead of his age and experience. Be good to see Joey stick to him and limit his influence and ideally give him a lesson. But he's one that I think that we really need to keep in check. All right, in terms of how we get the win, mate, what do we need to do?
Just what we did, just what we did against the Dogs. Really, like that really aggressive ball movement and make them chase us. Just really, really throw our game in their faces and win that way.
So yeah, I think the Giants are going to be out for blood. Obviously, 1 point loss to the Suns. I don't want to say it's embarrassing because that's disrespectful to the Suns who have had a good couple of weeks. And I watched the end of that game and they played well and held out for a good win for them. But I just think the Giants are going to be, there's going to be steam coming out of a lot of their orifices. And, I think that in terms of that local rivalry that's been thrust upon us, even though it's in a neutral venue, it's going to be a pretty hard game, I think. Look, Jacob Hopper, who I think is one of your favorite players or, very well respected in your view. He's 11th in the league for contested possessions, about 13 a game. Taranto is 13th in disposals and 5th in tackles. Cornelio coming back in, as we said. Josh Kelly, Tom Green, Toby Green, Callum Ward, De Boer. It's an absolutely star-studded midfield unit. But we can take some confidence out of the fact that we matched the Dogs and their Hollywood midfield last week. So we just need to go hard again at their mids and then hopefully break them down in the forwards and the D as well. Fingers crossed, mate. All right, so in terms of recent form and previous meetings, the Swannies are obviously 10 wins, 6 losses, sitting at 6th. The Giants are 7 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw against the Roos. Crazy. And they are sitting 10th. We are 2 wins, 1 loss from in our last 3, which is since the bye, and these are all against top 8 teams. The Giants, conversely, since the round 13 draw against the Roos, they are 2-2. So 2 losses against bottom 4 teams, Hawks and Suns, and then 2 wins was against Melbourne, who were coming first at the time, and Carlton 13th. So a bit up and down themselves. The Swans have lost 5 of the past games against the Giants, and our last loss was in round 5 this year, where we lost by 2 points at the SCG with Josh Kelly's unmarked run and goal. That was frustrating, wasn't it? Our most recent win against them was last year in Perth, where we smashed them. It was probably our best game of the year. We won by 41, which was the only other game played at a neutral venue in the short history of the local derby. So that was at Optus last year, and then the game this weekend at Mars in Ballarat will be the second. So we are 1 from 1 at a neutral venue in terms of local battle of the bridge. So let's wait and see what happens this weekend. The Giants are ranked first in 1%ers, so they're a high pressure team. They work hard, they pressure well. They're 3rd in stoppage clearances, and Jacob Hopper is a big part of that. They're 4th in clearances. Again, Hopper, Taranto, a big part of that. But they're number 1 in turnovers per game. So if we can hammer them like we did the Dogs, hopefully we should have a very good crack against them. From the 20 derby games already played, Sydney's won 12 and the Giants have won 8. With all of that in mind, Stevo, who are you tipping?
I think it's going to be 13-8. I reckon Swans are going to win. And I'm cautious on who you're going to tip because you managed to nail the Dogs last week and you nailed Richmond when we beat them. So I'm very attached to your tips now.
I'm going to go Swans, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be tricky. Also, I think weather will come into play a little bit out there. If it's usually pretty cold out there, if there's a bit of a wind, that will have a say in things. But I just think that we need to just keep this engine going. It's looking good, it's feeling good, and it'll feel even better if we can put the Giants to the sword. Stevo, I know we've played them already this year, but if a group of Swans is called a bevy, then what is a group of Giants called?
Well, the technical term from last time in round 5, according to the internet, is a percussion of giants, which is cute because they make a noise when they run. I guess it's loud like a drum. But I thought we could try and come up with something which was more specific to this particular group of giants. So as you alluded to before, I think maybe these giants are an imposition of giants or an upstart of giants. I thought about an irrelevance of giants or something similar, but that's not really fair because they've actually done very well in the time they've been in the AFL, so they're not irrelevant. So imposition or upstart is what I come up with.
So this week they're going to be an upstart of Giants, is that correct? All right, take that. That was a smack in the face to all those Giants fans that aren't listening. with a soft velvet glove that Stevo is throwing the gauntlet down. Yeah, look, when they okay, I'm just going to go on air and say, look, when the Swans are playing and the Giants are playing, I will watch, and I don't mind if they play well and win. I don't barrack for them because I just don't think that it needed to be another team in Sydney. But when it comes to the Swans and the Giants, I don't know. Maybe there is this growing, budding rivalry. I do get swept up in it a bit, so I really want us to smash these guys. So let's see how we go. All right, Stevo, let's move on to the tips for the rest of the round. Okay, so game 1 is 7th place Dockers versus 3rd placed Cats at Optus Stadium in Perth on Thursday night. I'm going with the Cats here, mate.
Yep, me too, Cats.
Game 2, 12th place Tigers versus 4th place Lions at the MCG Friday night. Battle of the Cats, or big cat animals. I'm going the Tigers.
I'm going to tip Richmond. The other one, Brisbane. I'm going to tip Brisbane. I think they're going to spoil the Jack Revolt 300 game party.
That would make you happy, I think.
Well, at least I wouldn't be sad.
Well played. That was very diplomatic. Game 3, we've got the Giants and the Swans, and we're both picking the Swannies up the Bloods. Game 4, we've got 14th place Suns versus 2nd place Bulldogs at Metricon Stadium on the Gold Coast. Bulldogs, but can you imagine if the Suns knock the Dogs off?
I don't think they will. I reckon Bulldogs too.
Yeah, too easy. All right, game 5, we've got the 1st place Demons versus 17th placed Hawks at the MCG Saturday twilight. I'm going with the D's, mate.
Yeah, for sure. Demons.
Game 6, we've got 9th place Saints versus 5th place Power at Marvel on Saturday night. And I think the Saints, they're marching home, mate.
Yeah, they are. I was very tempted to tip Saints for this, but I'm going to tip the Power just because I think if they don't win this, then everyone they've got everything to prove everything to is just going to write them off. So they've got to win this one.
Yeah, fair call. All right, game 7, we've got 18th place Kangaroos versus 11th place Bombers at Marvel on Sunday Arvo. I'm going the Kangaroos. Bit of an upset.
Me too. No, I think it's not even an upset. I think they're playing really well. I'm tipping Kangaroos as well.
Yeah, okay. David Noble is having an early effect, but let's see if they can keep it going. Game 8, we've got 15th place Magpies versus 13th place Blues, the old rivalry at the MCG, Sunday twilight. I think the Pies, mate.
Yeah, me too.
I just think they seem a bit up and about with Harvey there, so see how they go. Game 9, 16th place Crows, 8th place Eagles at Adelaide Oval, Sunday twilight. Crows for me.
Yeah, same. I'm not tipping West Coast ever again this year.
I don't know what's going on with those guys, but it's like they've forgotten how to play footy. I don't know. I can't imagine them being very popular in that footy-obsessed city of Perth right now, or state rather, or seceded nation Westralia. But they need to pull the finger out quickly, don't they? But no skin off our nose, hey? All right, mate. Have you got any other comments before I wrap up this episode?
No, none. Just looking forward to a good game on the weekend.
That's right. We're buzzing for our Bloods. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. On behalf of the Bevy, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening. We look forward to you joining us next time. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Bevy of Bloods for updates and announcements. Please also feel free to check out A Quick Bevy with Swans Fans on YouTube and Spotify, or wherever you check out your videos and podcasts. A Quick Bevy is a 10-minute weekly bonus series by a few of my fellow home game members from the O'Reilly stand, Chris and Brett, in which we take it in turns racing the clock to answer some Swans related questions. Until then, up the Bloods and can you Swannies?